Morning, everyone. Happy Purple Friday. I'm in my proper garb and attire. I believe the governor actually declared yesterday that it was Purple Friday. Although we're so busy, sometimes we can't pay attention to every utterance there. Nonetheless, I'm going to say go Ravens right at the top and get that out of the way. Let's get them. Even if you are one of those people from another city who doesn't root for the Ravens, join us, please. We have had a last-minute addition to the agenda. House Bill 417. And if you're wanting to look at that because you haven't had a chance, Justin will at this moment send a mail out with the link to the Google Drive that has everything in it, testimony and bills, so you can poke around if you want to and take a look at those, especially since, as I said, we have a last-minute addition, but it's not very complicated because it's a bill that we have seen before and approved before. So I wanted to just make sure that everybody was aware that that bill has been added to the agenda. At the top today, we have Laurie Taylor Mitchell, who is the founder and a board member currently of the Student Support Network, which is, I'm not going to describe what they do because they're going to do that for you. We have along with her Tamlyn Kelly, who's the advocacy chair, Ron McDade, who's the president of Student Support Network, and Wendy Stringfellow, who is the executive director. And they're going to give us, the normal presentation, about 20 minutes or so, and then we'll have some time for questions. And then when they're done, they can hang around if they want, but we'll do the bill hearing. So with that, since Laurie Taylor Mitchell is sort of my main contact, I'm going to turn the floor over to her to describe to us what's going on good in Baltimore County.
Well, Delegate Ebersol, thank you so much for this opportunity to present to you and the rest of the delegation the statistics that we work with and, which generated really the founding of the Student Support Network and what we do today. And our executive director, Wendy Stringfellow, is going to share the back-to-back PowerPoint presentations. I will be doing the first part and Tam will be doing the second part. So thank you again all for being here. And Wendy, if you could share the screen, or Justin and Wendy, if you could share the screen, that would be great.
Okay, yes, thank you all. We appreciate your time. Let me try and share my screen right now.
There we go. Yeah, and if maybe you could put just the single slide, Wendy, is that possible?
Yep.
Great. Okay. So
can't hear you.
Can everybody hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Fun stuff.
So basically, we're going to be looking at some statistics on poverty and the effects of poverty and food insecurity on education in Baltimore County and how the network fits into that.
I'm in the chamber signing bills.
No, okay.
And how, what possible role the state might have going forward. So next, Wendy.
Yeah, I'm trying to move it forward.
Okay. So basically, the presentation is going to have three parts. The first is the extent of student poverty in Baltimore County. I'm going to give you some statistics. The second part is what the Student Support Network is involved with in terms of alleviating the effects of poverty in BCPS. And the third part, which Tam will do, is some additional stats on food insecurity and what we try to do in terms of alleviating that, not only in the county, but also in statewide. This PowerPoint and the notes down below, which have the sources for the documentation, are certainly available to you all. I will send it to Justin after the meeting today, and please take advantage of that information and use it and let me know if you have any questions.
Lori, I am having trouble fast forwarding this.
Well,
I'm not sure what we should have done a rehearsal. There we go.
There we go. It's okay. So this is a heat map on the left-hand side showing the concentrations of poverty in our region, Baltimore County and Baltimore City. And the statistics are, I'm sorry to say, they're pretty bleak right now. In 2023, 66% of all students in BCPS, that's over, oh yeah, if you could go back, please. There you go. Now that's over 73,000 students now qualify for free and reduced price meals or farms in Baltimore County. By the way, it was 44% 5 years ago, so there has been a huge increase. And 30,000 of these students at least live in families qualifying for SNAP. In other words, their annual income for a family of 4, for example, cannot exceed $39,000. And so you'll see that there's extensive poverty now in Baltimore County and in every region. The more intense the color is, of course, the more intense the areas are of poverty. And it's not just, it's the sheer number of students in poverty that degrade our efforts in education. And it's not just that, it's also the level of extreme poverty in which they live. And you can see the number that the income levels that we're talking about are extremely low. Can I have the next slide, Wendy? So the next one is basically information for you as representatives of our county. I'm showing you just 2 examples of the heat maps that with catchment areas for schools that we now have on the Student Support Network website. I just chose 2, 44A and 11B. The blue is the line of the district. The white lines are the catchment or lighter areas are the catchment areas of the school. So you can see, for example, this is these are for middle schools. And you can see the heat map showing, for example, Lansdowne Middle School has 90% of its students qualify for free and reduced price meals. Arbutus is slightly less, and Catonsville slightly less for 44A. 11B, there's a tremendous amount of poverty now in the Pikesville area, as you can see around Pikesville Middle, with decreasing but still substantial areas of poverty, for example, in Cockeysville Middle School, the catchment area. We have maps for every single councilmanic, legislative, and congressional district with school at catchment areas on our website. And I encourage you, if you're interested in knowing about a particular school and what the poverty level is in relation to the catchment areas, please visit our website. Those are you can download those and use them as you wish for informational purposes. And the next. So I also want to call your attention to an equity metrics report that was done a couple of years ago. It's been overlooked. It's available. I can send you the PDF. It's poverty's effects on academic performance, for which we now have hard data. And I just pulled 2 out of that equity metrics report. Economic inequity is a primary factor, poverty, in these 2 examples. One is performance and the other one is attendance. So you can see that in elementary schools in BCPS, children qualifying for farms perform far below their peers, 25% below in reading and 27% below in math. And chronic absenteeism, which is a major problem for every school district, including ours, of course. In middle school, children qualifying for farms, their chronic absenteeism rate is nearly 22% higher than for children that don't qualify for free and reduced price meals. So these are really significant numbers, and they are worsening. If you go to the report, you'll see that these problems are widening and worsening in many schools as well. And the next. So why, we could spend all day on this, of course, but why in Maryland, with the highest median income in the nation, about $108,000, is student poverty such a huge problem? And that's a lot of hours of discussion, but I'm just going to focus on one aspect, which is the federal poverty levels prevent thousands of families who need assistance from getting it. And I'm just giving one example here. The family of 4 and federal limit to qualify for SNAP, for example, is $39,000. That's 130% of the federal poverty level. But if you look at the MIT living wage calculator, the basic expenses, the annual income needed to meet those expenses for a family of 4 in Baltimore County is now $106,000. So that means if a family makes $40,000, they don't qualify for SNAP, but they are still over $60,000 away from being able to meet their basic expenses. And these are the families that kind of fall through the hole, which are also defined. A much better evaluation of poverty is ALICE. And probably a lot of you know about that, the United Way, asset limited, income constrained, employed, those families that make too much to qualify for assistance, but not enough to make ends meet. They are in a terrible position because of that federal poverty level. Okay, can I have the next? So just briefly on the Student Support Network, we began with 1 school in 2016. We became a nonprofit, a 501c3 in 2017. We currently have 21 partner schools. We have now 26 schools that are on the waiting list, more than are in the network itself. What we do quickly in our partner schools, we operate a room of support. In every school, here are a couple of examples of rooms of support, and they stock school food, school supplies, clothing, backpacks, non-perishable food, personal care products, whatever the staff tell us that students need, we make an effort to put it into those rooms. I'll just give you, we're learning all the time from staff what students need. Nurses ask for food and saltines because kids come and they need to take medications and they haven't had any food and they have to take their meds with food. We found out that light bulbs, we had a family who was carrying one light bulb from one room to the next and their kids couldn't do homework after school after it got dark. So we started stocking light bulbs. Athletic directors told us they don't have any sunscreen for their children because they can't afford it. So we started sunscreen during sports seasons. So those are just 3 examples of how these basic needs are not being met and how we try to meet them. And we also raise funds for, shoes, coats, other things that they ask that, we can't stock all the time in the rooms. Can I have the next? So I did want to point out that when COVID hit and everything shut down, we lost all of that. All of our programs in the schools shut down as well. And we had an emergency board meeting in 2020 that all of our resources would be immediately turned around and went into distributions. And for 15 months, we distributed at 3 sites once a week until the end of June of 2021. I apologize if you participated and your photograph is not here, but I photographs of 5 delegates who volunteered. Dana Stein, Michelle Guyton, Harry Bandari, Kathy Forbes. This is on her porch where people dropped off hundreds and hundreds of cans of supplies and otherwise. She ran a distribution site for many, many months at Loch Raven Technical. Our county executive visited. Delegate Cheryl Pasteur was also a volunteer. And so over those 15 months, we distributed over $7 million in supplies, food, other things that essential supplies that families did not have through these 3 sites. About half of that was provided through federal funding through the county for food. The rest of it, I'm proud to say, came from grants and donations to the network. So that was a massive effort involving hundreds of volunteers across the county, and that was quite a time. Next, Wendy. So the schools opened up again, back to school, still in need. And so we received a grant administered through MSDE of federal funding for $1 million, which has greatly been able to accelerate our efforts to, distribute more in food and supplies. So I'm just giving you a couple of stats here. 2022 to 2023, we distributed over $500,000 in food and supplies to our network partner schools and some others in emergency situations. And just the second half of last year, $325,000 in food and supplies to our partner schools. So there's a tremendous amount of need. We are meeting a little bit of that need, but this grant will expire at the end of December of this year. But we have been able to do a lot more over the last couple of years. Can I have the next one, Wendy? So the majority of our resources are still going to food. We also organize large distributions the way we did for Thanksgiving and the December holidays, and also before schools go out in the summer, because food insecurity is the worst, like today and Tuesday. There were a lot of students who didn't get enough to eat because they were not in school where they're getting free meals. And that problem is by far the worst, of course, in the summertime. So we organize massive distributions. The slide on the right shows our hub, our storage space where volunteers come and get the supplies they need for the school. And on the left-hand side is one of the big distributions that happen through Owings Mills High School. So we distribute hundreds and hundreds of bags of food and supplies to families in need, especially before the breaks. And I want to say, although our resources are are primarily devoted to food, we are really not, to paraphrase another nonprofit, we're not in the food supply business. We're in the opportunity business, because a hungry child cannot learn. And if they're worrying about where their next meal is going to come from, and they don't have shoes that fit or they don't have a coat, they cannot concentrate on what you all are working so hard to provide to them, especially through the Blueprint for Progress. They can't focus on what you're trying to provide to them in terms of an education. They cannot get the basic education they deserve without these basic necessities being provided. And the next, Wendy. So in conclusion, I just want to point out that according to MSDE, over half of all the students in Maryland public schools now, 485,000 students, are living in severe poverty. That is a staggering number for the wealthiest state in the nation. And we have, you know, as I said, we have more schools waiting to come in than, than we even have now. So my question to you all today, or one of the questions, is how can state government provide sustained support to successful nonprofits, including ours, but there are many others, that provide essential supplies? Because I've been doing a little digging into the blueprint. The blueprint provides a lot of increase in student funding, but those 9 wraparound services, especially for community schools, they do not provide funding specifically for essential supplies to students. So where is, this is our niche, of course, the network, but where is it possible to put funding for essential supplies? I'm not talking about salaries and all of that, but these food and these other things. Is there a place in the blueprint that could be expanded a little bit for food and these other items that that students need? So that's the end of my part of the presentation. So is Tam with us? I didn't.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, maybe if you turn it up a little bit. So Tam,
Okay.
turning over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lori. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the Maryland Youth Risk Behavior Survey, or the Youth Tobacco Survey. If you're not aware of it, it's a survey that's done every other year by the Center for Disease Control of all public middle and high school students in the United States. So we have some data from the 21-22 school year that I want to share with you today. Next slide, please. So as Lori mentioned, much of the work of the network is focused on food insecurity because we know that when basic needs like food aren't being met, the students are not ready to learn. So we advocated to get better data on food insecurity by having the measure added to the Youth Risk Behavior Survey in 2018. So what the questions are here on your screen, it asks, in the last 12 months, how often was your family worried that your food would run out before you had money to buy more? And how often did the food your family bought not last and you did not have money to get more? So what we found in this most recent survey was that 20% of high school students experience food insecurity, about 1 in 5. And the next slide will show you how that varies across the state. So although 1 in 5 is the average, we know that in some areas it's a much higher rate. So for example, you can see on the Eastern Shore in Western Maryland, we have higher rates. We also know that Baltimore County's rate is 23% for high school students. So that is higher than the state average. In addition to there being these differences by geography, we know that there are other differences in terms of which students are at the highest risk of food insecurity. Next slide, please. This graph shows the food insecurity rates for high school students by race and ethnicity. This is for the entire state, not just Baltimore County. So as you can see, some students of color are at a 2 times greater risk of food insecurity. And if you push the next button, Wendy, it should show that. Yes, great, thanks. Some students are less likely to experience food insecurity. Those are the Asian students at the bottom. If you push the next button, it should show that. And then the highest disparity is for Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander students, which you can see at the top. Almost 40% of students in that category experience food insecurity, and that is 4 times greater odds of experiencing food insecurity as compared to their white peers. If you push on the next button, it'll show that too. Thank you. So in addition to looking at food insecurity by race and geography, we're also able to look at it in terms of the other risk factors that are measured in the YRBS-YTS survey. And so the next 3 slides I'm going to look at some of those measures. So the orange bars on these slides are the percentage of students experiencing food insecurity, and the blue bars are the percentage of students that are food secure. So as I mentioned at the beginning, the YRBS survey does measure substance use, violence, mental health, adverse childhood experiences or ACEs, those types of things. So this first slide looks at some of the mental health risk factors. What we know is that food insecure students are more than 2 times as likely to experience poor mental health outcomes. So if you look at the last bar on this graph, you can see that 32% of high school students who are food insecure have considered suicide. That's a pretty shocking statistic. It's still pretty high even for students that are food secure. About 18% of food secure students have considered suicide. So I think most of us have heard that the mental health of students has really suffered in the past few years, and this graph really does show that. Next slide, please. So we also know that students experiencing food insecurity are at a higher risk of substance use. So for example, students who are food insecure are more than 2.5 times more likely to abuse prescription drugs. And then the last slide on this for this section that I want to show has to do with some physical risk factors. So the first line shows how students experiencing food insecurity are significantly more likely to be obese. But we also know that students experiencing food insecurity are at a higher risk of violence. So as you can see here, the risk of being in a physical fight at school is 3 times greater for students who are food insecure. And I really want to call your attention to the measure here about carrying a gun at school. So what we see is that almost 9% of high school students who are food insecure reported carrying a gun, compared to 2% of high school students that are food secure. So, and that is a 5 times greater odds ratio, which is the greatest disparity that we found in all of the measures that we are collected on the YRBS survey. I think this is really important to underline because there is a lot of discussions happening in Annapolis and elsewhere about reducing violence in our schools. And we really need to look at the root causes, and food insecurity is one of those. So what can we do about these issues? There are 2 key interventions that we need to support. Next slide, please. The first is universal school meals. We support that, the Student Support Network. We've been working really hard, and we're thrilled that Baltimore County Public Schools is using community eligibility provision this year in every single school. So that means we have hunger-free schools across the district, which is just great. We know that CEP lowers food insecurity for both students and families. There still are lots of schools across the state that are eligible but not using it. And we want to make sure that Baltimore County continues to stay in the program. So that's one key thing. And then the main ask that we have today is to support SNAP. Next slide, please. This is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. This is the federal benefit that helps low-income families buy food. It is the most important and effective program that we have to reduce food insecurity and poverty. Unfortunately, it's not as much of a benefit as we would like to see. And especially during the summer, families really struggle. So on the next slide, we're asking for your support for Maryland Summer SNAP for Children. This is a SNAP supplement for children. Essentially, it provides extra money on a SNAP card so that families can buy food during the school breaks. As Lori mentioned, food insecurity does increase during the summer when schools are closed and childcare costs go up. So Baltimore County has really led the way in this program in the past few years, which we're really proud to report. And we're hoping that this year will be the first year that Baltimore County can say every single student or child in Baltimore County that is eligible for SNAP is receiving the summer SNAP benefit. No one's been able to do that yet due to the lack of funding or not enough funding, but we're hopeful that that will happen this year. So we ask for you to support the county executive and the county council in making sure that that funding is in the budget. Next slide, please. So thank you very much for your time and attention today. Our contact information is up here on the slide, and we are happy to take any easy questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Caught me off guard there. I thought we had one more segment to go. I appreciate the presentation. Certainly, we don't appreciate what we learned, but that's exactly why we're here. If there are members of the delegation who'd like to ask questions or just poke around with the folks from Student Support Network, if you just raise your Zoom hand, I'll be happy to recognize you. Okay, I don't see anybody because
No,
I think it's pretty clear here.
There are
One,
four
two, three.
delegates.
Okay, I'm not on the right page. There you go. I got them. Thank you. I was scoping around. Delegate Ruth.
Thank you so much, and thank you for this presentation. It's I think I speak for everyone when I say it's really horrifying, and we want to do everything we can to to reduce child poverty. I just want to kind of underscore two things that you said. One was related to the violence, and as you said, there's been a lot of focus on child violence and child crime, juvenile violence and juvenile crime. And it seems from your data like one of the best things that we can do to reduce the violence is to ensure that children have enough to eat. Would you say that's correct?
I don't know if it's the best thing, but I definitely think it's one of the things that we need to do. Absolutely.
Well, I said one of the best
Yes.
things.
Okay. Yes.
I did say one of the best things.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
Great. And you also mentioned that there's some data that shows that making sure that children have this summer SNAP benefit actually benefits the economy.
Yes. So Towson University economists did a study of this, and they found that increasing funding for the program benefits the economy by creating additional jobs, increasing tax revenues, and of course, it also reduces food insecurity for children in low-income families, which is the goal of the program. And there is a link to that study on the slide if folks are interested in looking at it in more detail.
Thank you so much. So, I mean, it really sounds like besides the moral obligation that we have to make sure that all children have enough to eat, that this is really a win-win for the county, that not only does it make sure that children have enough to eat, but it would reduce violence and help the economy. Isn't that so?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Great question there, Delegate Ruth. Really appreciate that. Delegate Naraki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This really could, sorry, I've got a little bit of a cold going, so I hope my voice is okay. This question could go to anyone, but Laurie, I know that we recently sat next to each other at the Teachers Association breakfast, and we had a really, I thought, thoughtful conversation about some of these issues. And we were talking about some of the concentrations of poverty in my district, particularly like in the Middle River area and things like that. So the question I have, you hinted on, or you talked about that there are different needs in different areas. Is that something that's on the website, or generally speaking, are you seeing different things on the east side of the county that students may need versus in the middle part of the county or the west side? And I know that's a complicated question, but I'm just trying to see if we could help out in some ways in these different areas, if there's specific things that different parts of the county need.
I'm going to ask Wendy to. Wendy, do you have any thoughts on that? I would say
it's a great question.
But yeah.
Yeah. In terms of the basic necessities, it's a great question, and we are in the midst of developing a survey that will be going out to all of our partner network schools, and so we will be able to provide that information in the near future.
Great, thank you very much. I would love it, if possible, if you could maybe provide that to the delegation so we could kind of see the results of that survey when you have it.
Absolutely.
Yes,
thank you very much.
If you get that together, if you send it to the address Justin provides, which starts off with BCOD, he will routinely, he won't wait for somebody to ask, he'll just routinely send that out to the delegation so that those that are interested can open it and have a look at it.
Absolutely.
Delegate Phillips.
So you just addressed one of my concerns is I didn't get the slides, Mr. Chair, so I wasn't sure if those have already been distributed, and if not, if they would, because there appeared to be a number of really good links in the presentation that I would love to follow up on. So
Yeah, we didn't ask for
Yeah.
them in advance, and so they're going to send them to us post haste, and we'll get them out.
Yes, we shall.
The faster they get them to us, the faster we'll send them out to you.
thank you. That was one thing. The other is what I didn't see in the presentation were the 21 schools or the 26 that have asked to participate in the network. If we could have those, that would be great as well.
Well, the 21 schools, actually, when you get the slide presentation, that heat map has little blue dots showing the locations of our 21 current partner schools by location all around the county. The 26 schools, a little reluctant to sort of release that publicly because some schools may not be comfortable with being, publicly on that waiting list. Also, when they got on the waiting list, when they will be able to come off the waiting list if we get sustainable funding. There are a lot of issues there in play. So maybe we can get back to you on providing exactly which schools are, trying to get in. But I can assure you that they are all high poverty schools. Over half the schools in Baltimore County have rates over 50%. Many of our schools are 80 to 90% free and reduced price meals. So the poverty level in most of them, Delegate Phillips, is very high.
Thank you. And I have
Sure.
had an opportunity to engage with some of your folks. So I really appreciate what you do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Phillips. Delegate Guyton, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Lori and Tam. There are no two people that work harder or know more about this issue than the two of you. And I've considered it an honor to be able to be a part of that organization. And I do want to thank you for that 21st school, which is Padonia International Elementary School in my district, which community school, sort of just getting into the beginning of being a partner with Student Support Network. I'm hoping that, and this is going to be a question, I'm hoping that my colleagues can understand that this amazing program grew from just a small grassroots effort at one school and two schools and then three schools by some really, really committed people. And what I see here, as far as what you need from us in the future, is it would be great to have sustained funding grant programs so that you can expand. But really what you're asking for is for us to feed the children in whatever way we can. And that, if I understand correctly, and that is actually an unusual ask for a nonprofit. Because you're really concerned about the mission and not so much about growing Student Support Network, although we do need you to continue to grow. Is that accurate?
I would say yes, because that's the most basic need, and it would help the most students achieve better academic outcomes in all levels, because that's such a basic need, which is unfortunately currently not being met.
Right. Thank you so much for what you do. And you're always an inspiration to us. So even though this is bad news, this is great news, because you've been able to grow something remarkable like nothing else I have been involved with in a long time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Delegate Pastor, please.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Lori. It has always been a pleasure to work with you in the Student Support Network. And I say this to the group because I want to make sure we don't slip back. I want to thank Tam, who I don't know if she remembers, but she was like the CEP whisperer in my ear when we went to the school board, because we had in Baltimore County just dug in on farm, and we really needed to go to CEP. And so I want to thank you, particularly you, Tam, for just giving me what I needed with Dr. Hager to make the presentation. And once we went to CEP, everyone know that the numbers actually were startling because we kept thinking that the numbers were smaller. And when we went to CEP and SNAP, we realized just how needy the students in Baltimore County are. So thank you. I want to just ask this question around Delegate Phillips' request, and I was going to ask it even before he made the request about the schools that are on the waiting list. Would you, Laurie, agree that a part of the problem, because there is a problem, let me just say it's a problem on the West Side. We have very few over here. And a part of that has to do with the requirements for having a student support network site. And I think, and most of it is on our end. It has nothing to do with the student support. How can we, as a delegation, and sharing it with the school system, because we have the president of the board on this call, how can we help our schools, some new, maybe out of the box ideas about how we can help some of those schools so that they actually can have sites? I know part of it is funding and all of that, but we do have some significant problems in terms of space needs, the cooperative funding, if you will, what schools have to put up to be a part of it. But that we should not have schools suffering or children suffering for those reasons. So what kinds of things are you thinking about in terms of helping to bridge that?
Well, I think that's in part a question for Wendy and maybe Ron too. I just want to chime in that I think Wendy can speak to the infrastructure that we need to be able to run these programs effectively, right? You can't drastically increase the number of schools without having an effective infrastructure to manage those programs and administer those. And that's really where the sustainable funding part comes in. I absolutely dread, and I never want to say yes to many schools and then have to pull back and take that away. I just think, I find that just morally untenable. So having said that, how can we grow effectively? Just quickly, I think developing resources around schools, we've had a lot of success in that. And I think one of the things that schools can do, or people interested in particular schools, is to look at churches, businesses, community organizations. What little part can they do? Because I'm telling you, the cumulative effect of that in terms of support for a school can be enormous. And with that, Wendy, Ron, I don't know if you want to speak to the delegates' other part of the question. What can they do?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. Besides the money side of the world, it costs us roughly $35,000 a year for each school that we participate in total costs. But the other two things that are very, very critical to making this project work, you mentioned the space. We can make that work somehow, some way with school leadership. But the other two pieces that are absolutely critical here, number one, each school administration needs to be very, very bought into providing this service to their students and making it a priority among the staff of the school. Our most successful schools have exactly that. They have the principal or the assistant principal who are our biggest advocates for this program in the school. The second major category of thing that is absolutely critical is local volunteers. Each of our rooms of support is run by a pair of very dedicated local lead volunteers who build their own volunteer team at that school. And their role is to keep that closet stocked, work with the personnel workers at that school, and identify the children and make the service available to the children. So the short way of saying that is local leadership in the school and in the volunteer community around each schools is absolutely critical, Delegate.
Thank you. Yeah, and that is something we can do as delegates with our constituents. Thank you.
Thank you
You're welcome.
both. I see 4 more hands, and we're in the interest of time. I think they'll be the last 4. Delegate Shalega, please. Nice outfit, by the way.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Go Ravens. Now on to the business at hand. Thank you all for providing such a great service to the students across our county. The slides, as you've heard, we'd like to see a copy of them. One in particular, I hope has a note on it. It said 104,000 for a family of 4 in Baltimore County to live. So hopefully you'll have a footnote so we can look at where that came from. But the other slide in particular I'm interested in, I took a picture of it on my phone. High school student physical risk behaviors by food security status. And I think a few delegates have hit on this. So, you know, there's a difference between correlation and causation. And, you know, I hope that you can differentiate between the two. But, you know, causation, food insecurity and obesity in particular, I'm concerned about that. What are you doing to ensure that students are getting good food? Because all foods are not equal. And what are you doing? I mean, obesity leads to diabetes, high blood pressure, all kinds of health issues. And, you know, helping students with this problem at a young age will clearly pay dividends going into the future of their life. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I'll just say quickly, Tammy made food insecurity and the effects of obesity as an effect is a very complicated problem that goes far beyond, you know, what we can do. In other words, they don't have the income to buy fresh produce and food that is good for them. So they buy food that is not nutritionally adequate, and so that's the food that they can afford, and that's the food that creates obesity. We do our best in schools to provide produce when we can, and other nutritious, even perishable food. If a school has a refrigerator or a freezer, we're making every effort to provide you know, good food through our rooms of support to the schools that we, you know, work with. So Tam, do you have anything else to add to that?
That's good to know, because again, all foods are not equal.
That's right.
So I would hope that your food that you're providing, at least from this end, you know, and for the free breakfast that is available, I believe, to all students across Baltimore County, that is nutritious food and not just some food full of sugar and junk. But the other question on that same chart with regards to causation, I find it interesting that you're saying that food insecurity is going to cause kids to fight, carry a gun, and carry a weapon. I see there could be a correlation between those student numbers, but someone who doesn't have food is not going to put a gun in their pocket and go to school. I think that's a far reach to say that's a causation. Would you agree or disagree?
I do think it's a good point in terms of the difference between causation and correlation. This survey is not able to show causation. We're only able to look at correlation. So we know that students who are food insecure are more likely to be in a physical fight and to carry weapons, but we're not able to say the cause of that. That was my opinion, to say that, you know, food insecurity is one of the root causes of violence and other issues. It's very stressful when you don't have enough food at home. Sometimes folks can resort to doing things that, you know, may not be the best options. And, you know, I think the stress of that experience is what you're seeing in that slide.
Yeah, I think it's a big stretch to say it's a causation. I mean, firearms are expensive. So someone in poverty having, you know, a gun, guns are expensive. But again, that is a complete side note. I just glad to hear you straighten it out. It's correlation and causation, and I don't think there's any way you can say that food insecurity is causing people to carry a gun or carry a weapon to school.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Delegate
I think
Zelega.
it's just the way quickly, just at higher risk, Delegate Zelega. It's at a higher risk, and there are many factors related to that higher risk. But students who are food insecure are at a higher risk for obesity, and they are at a higher risk for carrying a gun or fighting in school. And the numbers say that they are at a higher risk than children who are food insecure.
Sure, but certainly food insecurity is a direct correlation to obesity because it's the kind of food you're eating. But fighting and weapons are not related to that. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. This, yes, can go offline further on that. Delegate Bhandari.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. So many of us enjoyed a night for the network, if I do remember correctly, library edition on October 20, 2023. Thank you for that. And my question would be, is there any recommendation to us in the light that we are in the session and we serve in the different standing committee? Lori?
Well, I understand that, the state is under looking at a big deficit and so on. And so I am not going to make some sort of direct ask here, but I mean, for the network per se, although that would be very nice if possible, but funding for, many nonprofits providing basic necessities, if there was some kind of a pool that maybe people could apply for grants or whatever. But the second thing I would suggest is looking at the $500 million that are being added to the blueprint. Is there any way that more of that funding could be devoted to basic needs? Because, for example, in community schools, the wraparound services, there are 9 of them. There are basic, one of them does mention food and the other one vision and dental, but the rest are for salaries for needed positions and so on. My question is, how much of the blueprint is related to providing these basic necessities for children? And I think the funding for that is not as robust, shall we say, as it could be. Is there any way that the funding could be, say, we're going to provide this much for food, we're going to provide this much for basic necessities that do not involve salaries and all this other infrastructure, that is part of the increase of the blueprint.
Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Forbes.
Thank you, Chair Ebersol, and thank you so much for this presentation today. Lori Taylor Mitchell, I've watched you start the Student Support Network from one school and one holiday that you were hoping to help families at and grow it. And Tam, you have educated everyone for so many years, so I appreciate you. You recognize the issue and that it was growing in Baltimore County early. You've educated elected officials and anyone else that would listen. And you've scaled this program and are serving so many more children and families. So I really appreciate that. Your mission supports the mission of community schools, and what the Kerwin Commission taught us was the community schools are the one thing that can make a difference in kids' lives in poverty. And so we should all be supporting your work. And I asked my colleagues to bring the Student Support Network to community groups in your neighborhood so they can join in. And because that is what they've really done. They've connected people that want to help with a local, hyper-local needs and an ability to help. So thank you for that. And will you talk just briefly about what you do outside of food insecurity? Because I've heard so many stories that have touched my heart about eyeglasses and bicycles and the story at your Night for the Network about the connections your volunteers make with students in schools. The one kid that graduated from high school only because he had the connection with the network and is now just bought a house. So please share a little bit about that work, because it's really important to the work that you do. And I thank you both so much and all of your volunteers.
Well, thank you. I'll refer to the one that you mentioned, and that was basically the student who was charged with a crime in Baltimore County, went into the detention center and was released. He was charged but never convicted. He went back to, well, it was high school. He was severely depressed. The staff person there put him in touch with the network. He got things he needed out of the room of support. We also provided food cards for him because he was on his own. He managed to graduate with the help from the staff, but he couldn't get a job because of the record of being charged. So I found a lawyer who agreed pro bono to have the charge removed. Because the charge was removed, he was able to get a job. He's married, he's bought a house, and agreed to share his story at the Night for the Network. But that's a really good example of how the network, with its, not only the support in the school, but connections that we have outside of the school for other resources, changed that student's life. And now he's going to go out and he's, contributing to the tax base and everything else. And education is, well, you all know that it's the foundation for a better life and for a better economic future for everybody. And that's why we need to get these basic needs supplied. But, everything from, light bulbs to students and families who don't have what they need. If they're in a partner school, they can go and get what they need. At the basic level.
Thank you for all that you do.
So Delegate Mangione had announced that we were going to kind of cut it off, but if you can make it quick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just be real quick, and thank you for being here. And sorry if I missed this earlier, I had to run for a phone call, but I guess my question is, I saw the slide had 66%, I think, of students eligible for free and reduced meals. And that seems to have been a big increase. I guess my question would be, how fast has that grown and how long have you been doing, I guess, these numbers? Because my concern here is the overall underlying issue in Baltimore County, that it looks like we're continuing to see a drastic increase of those living in poverty or trending towards poverty. And that may be a question for us as legislators and community leaders, but what do you see that is one of the main drivers? And when did you start with these numbers? So now it's 66%, when 30%, 35%?
Well, I can, Delegate Mangione, thank you for the question. I can direct you to a site on BCPS that has these numbers since 2006. They are required by law to be reported every year at the local and the state level. That is the number of children qualifying for free and reduced price meals. So when I started the network at Lock Raven High School, the poverty rate there of children qualifying for free and reduced price meals was 33%. Now, 8 years later, it is, I think, 54 or 56%. So at that one school, it's gone up by that much in 8 years. So the poverty rate is increasing steadily. There are all kinds of reasons for that, which we don't have time to discuss today. It's a very complicated issue, but there is no doubt that the poverty levels in the county have increased dramatically over the last, 17 years or so. They are skyrocketing.
Now, I appreciate that, and that means that we have a lot of work to do, of course, as leaders to try to help people's economic situation improve. So this is not something that continues to trend in the wrong direction. So thank you for being here.
Well, listen, thank you all for coming. I'm going to ask one question myself. When we originally talked about community eligibility, one of the concerns was that it wouldn't be necessary to continue to identify students who are farms eligible, and that it would be difficult then to make them eligible for other services. Is that still a barrier that we have, or have we overcome that?
That's a question for Tam.
Yeah, I thought so.
It's still an issue.
Okay.
Tam, are you there?
Yeah, so it more of a changing in how we're measuring and identifying students.
Yes.
We found ways around that. And the numbers that we have in terms of students that are directly certified is the language that's used by MSDE. So students that we already know through other ways are experiencing poverty, we're able to directly certify them for free meals. So essentially that means if your family is receiving SNAP benefits, we already know that what your income level is. We already know that you're low income and qualify for free meals. And so we're able to directly certify you for free meals.
And we're not finding it difficult to make them eligible for other services then either. Is that right? Or we are, but we're finding ways to do that.
No, we're not. That's not causing a problem. We are finding other ways. Medicaid, we're
Yeah.
also able to identify students that are on Medicaid and connect them directly to free meals. So that's been another great increase, great benefit.
And we went to Medicaid actually on the state. We identified a lot more students when we used Medicaid as a driver. So that was, it cost us a lot of money. As you say, we should put more money in. That immediately put us in a position where we were serving a lot more students than we had been before, and we can continue with that. Thank you all very much for being here. I will point out that Student Support Network has a wonderful gala event, which helps support all this. So keep your eye out for announcements of that. If you're interested in helping them, that would certainly be one way that you could. And it's a nice event. A lot of good people there. So I was there, but I don't count myself. Thank you all very much for being here. Delegates, thank you for all your observations. There was no shortage of praise for this organization, and I'm not surprised by that. So thank you very much.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
All right, that concludes the briefing. We'll now move to bill hearings. We have 3 bills to hear today, which we'll hopefully get around to voting on in the next delegation meeting. We'll see how the hearings proceed. We're going to start off with House Bill 58, which is speed monitoring systems in residential districts. The sponsor is Delegate Guyton. Delegate Guyton, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I also just want to shout out to the leadership of the General Assembly. I don't know if Madam Speaker is with us right now. I know we have the Speaker Pro Tem, and I just want to thank you for the pro forma session today. This is a weather event in North County, and I may be eating stale Fruit Loops all weekend, but at least I'll be safe. So thank you for that. And for those of you who don't know, I'm actually not in my office. I am at home right now, thanks to that leadership. I am here, members, to ask for your favorable support of House Bill 58. You have heard this bill in a very similar form last year. This bill simply transfers, I know people laugh when you say it's a simple bill. This is a simple bill. This bill simply transfers the authority to decide when and where speed monitoring devices can be placed in residential areas to Baltimore County from the state. This bill is a local control bill. And I think we just heard from Student Support Network that they're able to do this example. They're able to do their best work because there are people on the ground closest to the problem that can remind us that students need things like light bulbs and sunscreen that we wouldn't have thought about. So I think it's really important that the Baltimore County Administration and Police Department have the statutory authority to be nimble when trying to support the public safety concerns of our residents, right? Currently, Baltimore County has to bring the placement of speed monitoring devices outside of specific school zones to the state legislature for statutory approval, which means folks in Baltimore City, folks in St. Mary's County, folks in Montgomery County are actually voting on those things and not Baltimore County administration, which can be a concern. So this bill enables simply our local government to make these decisions directly if they choose to do so to protect the safety of our constituents. So other counties are going in this direction, and I believe that's going to continue. In the past 2 years, Montgomery County's made this change, Prince George's County has made this change, Anne Arundel County has made this change to provide more local control in these decisions. So this bill is supported by over 40 community associations. I know last year you all heard from lots of them. I do want to point out that one of our witnesses, who is Miss Owens, the president of the Liberty Manor Community Association, which I believe is in the Windsor Mill area, has lost power today because of the storm. And so she will not be able to join us, but we will hear from a few others, and I will make sure that you have her testimony. I also want to point out that I've worked with the Baltimore County Executive's Office this year, and we have the support from Baltimore County Administration. I have a letter from the chair of the Baltimore County Council in support and several other independent letters from councilmen, and that is a bipartisan effort. So I want to make sure that you do recognize that we both have, that we have both Democrats and Republican council people who have said that they are publicly supportive of this legislation this year. In addition, I've had multiple conversations with Chief McCullough, Chief of Police of Baltimore County, and we are currently waiting for his letter to come over, but he has also expressed support for this legislation. So hopefully that will change some of your minds this year. We came awful close to passing this last year in delegation, and I hope that we will do so this year. I did work on over the interim on language to make this bill less prescriptive with the county executive's office, and basically it doesn't provide any major changes. It just makes the bill, gives them more local control for any regulations that they may need to propose. All of the provisions that were particularly important to members of this body last year, and if I recall, public comment was one of them, police involvement, and traffic studies was another. Those are still in the bill. Right? This bill is being cross-filed by Senator Ben Brooks, and he will fight the fight on the Senate side, but I hope that on the House side this year, we can pass this and give support to our local administration and public safety officers. So I thank you for your consideration of House Bill 58. And I am certainly open for questions, but I also believe I have some witnesses.
We will take questions at the end of the witnesses.
Okay.
Delegate Guyton, I know that you have an amendment that you intend to offer. So that we can be clear what your overall intent is? Do you want to discuss the amendment real quick in case somebody's looking at the bill? We have posted the amendment on the same Google site that all the other information is there. We got a hold of it last night. You're muted.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I apologize it took us so long to make sure that you had that last evening. Yeah, the amendment was one put in by the county administration, and it just literally says Baltimore County is responsible for promulgating regulations to allow public comment, because that was something we did, and general implementation of this statute. It just makes the bill in general less prescriptive so that they can do what they needed to do. And again, like I say, the issues with public comments mentioned there, but the public safety and traffic reports, all of that it's still in the bill. So,
thanks. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's a second part that seems to remove the council from the decision-making process. I can check with council on that, or you can confirm that, either one.
Yeah, we felt like this public comment period, general implementation of this statute depending on how the county and the county council and the county administration wants to proceed, that all of those decisions will be left up to them. The council involvement, how many public comment sessions, all the rest will be left up to them. And so that's for the county to figure out.
And it's your intent to bring that amendment forward when we do voting on this bill. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. We have 6 guests. I will tell you that we let the sponsor go as long as they feel like they need to. Guests, you're limited to 2 minutes of testimony. And so we had 6, now we have 5 apparently, but we'll start off with Eric Rockel. Please, you have the floor, sir.
Good morning, delegation. Thank you. I'd like to also extend my thanks to Delegate Guyton for sponsoring this bill. It's important because throughout the county, I live in the central part of the county, but throughout the county, there are problems with speeding. Now, the local government, the Office of Traffic Engineering does a good job of addressing that in neighborhood streets, but on the next higher level of streets, the collector streets, there's still a great problem. We've had in the central part of the county many experiences with cars leaving the road, the potential for private property damage, that sort of thing. I'd like to close my remarks by saying that the Insurance Institute of Highway Safety looked at Montgomery County, which has had this speed camera program in effect for, I think, over 7 years now. And the Insurance Institute concluded that there was a 10% reduction in mean speeds and a 62% reduction in the likelihood that a vehicle was traveling more than 10 miles per hour above the speed limit at camera sites. Those statistics in and of themselves made me a believer that this would be an effective measure to try to control speeding. Again, thank you for allowing me to speak my mind.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rockwell. I have designations for other guests, but I don't have theirs. Is there a group you're representing, just so we know?
Well, I'm speaking individually. I am the vice president of the Greater Timonium Community Council, but I'm here today in my individual capacity.
Thank you for your forthrightness on that. Next up, we have Jason Taylor, who is from the Marymount Neighborhood Improvement Association. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you, Delegate Guyton, for listening to us and sponsoring this bill. It's so important for public safety. I'm Jason Taylor, the president of the Marymount Neighborhood Improvement Association. Marymount composes of 197 homes in the Liberty Road corridor. It's adjacent to Stevenswood community. Our residents expressed to me great interest in speed camera legislation over the past couple of years in Baltimore County. And I was able to testify last year on behalf of this. I'm back again this year to articulate the residents' specific safety concerns and about the dangerous speeding on the connecting side streets of Liberty Road. So personally, I commute to work locations in both Prince George's and Montgomery counties. And occasionally, the GPS will navigate me off the state highways and onto smaller roads to avoid traffic. These neighborhoods in Montgomery County and Prince George's counties are protected by speed cameras. And I know because I've received speeding tickets from those cameras, and those tickets have made me slow down when navigating through those neighborhoods. My work commuting time frame is simultaneous with the time frame that kids are going to school. So in these neighborhoods, there are students waiting for buses and walking to school. And I think that these speed cameras definitely help protect them. And we want these same safety resources as an option here in Baltimore County neighborhoods. Specifically in my neighborhood, residents are tired of worrying about speeding and endangering the lives of our children and seniors and pets. And residents are tired of drivers going over 60 miles per hour in our community off Liberty Road to cut through the rolling road. This has to stop, and we must be allowed to defend our community streets against recklessness. Our local police have 1 or 2 traffic cops on duty due to shortages, so it's unrealistic to expect them to patrol such a wide area effectively. Last year, I heard there was a lot of confusion in Annapolis that the legislation somehow commits the county to install cameras. It doesn't. It simply enables the legislation, allow the county to consider doing so. Please don't oppose this right for our communities in Baltimore County to have the same access that Anne Arundel County, Montgomery County, and Prince George's County has to save lives, reduce accidents, and help our car insurance rates go down.
Sure.
Please let this
Mr. Taylor, if you could summarize, please. You're at 2 minutes.
Please let this legislation get passed. Our neighborhoods could be safer in Randallstown and Windsor communities and all across Baltimore County as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Shirley Supik, President of the Liberty Road Community Council. You have the floor.
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. As the president of the Liberty Road Community Council, we're an umbrella organization over a whole bunch of communities in this area. And I have continually gotten requests from them to do something about slowing traffic down. I have sat in communities for a couple of hours at a time and watched cars actually hit speed bumps that have already been installed for traffic calming, make these cars go airborne because they're traveling so fast that even the speed bumps don't have any effect on them. So the community is desperate. And when this came up, I try to do my homework. I went to Baltimore County's what I call the guru for speed reduction in Baltimore County, and that's Keith Link. And I asked him what it costs Baltimore County every year for speed cameras, for speed bumps. And he said each speed bump that's put in is $4,000. Last year, Baltimore County spent over $500,000 on calming effects. And so if cameras were installed, Baltimore County wouldn't have to pay for them. A company that installs these would install them, maintain them, and the money that is procured from those tickets would pay for the service that the camera company is providing. It also would bring in revenue, and there are communities out there who would like to have speed bumps, who don't necessarily need a camera, but they can't afford to have a speed bump in their area because they don't get enough traffic, but the traffic that does come through is speeding. So this extra money would actually allow those communities to have the funds to install speed bumps in that area if they needed it. We believe that Baltimore County should have the right to say that these communities need these services. And the other thing is, in Baltimore County, if the people have enough to say about an issue, we have a county executive who is listening. And so he ought to be able to do the things that we need done here. This is
Thank you, Ms. Stupik. Your 2 minutes. Could you give us a summary sentence, please?
I am just begging this commission, thanking them first off for listening and begging them to pass this legislation. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Stop that. Next up, we have Susan Williams, who is co-president of the Pine Ridge Association. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. My name is Susan Williams, and I am the co-president of Pine Ridge, which is in the Pikesville area. We have a particular area where we have a lot of speeding, and any number of our neighborhoods have had other people hit them while we're making a left turn into our community, meaning we're stated in that left turn lane and they run over the standing car. This is enabling legislation, and all it really says is Baltimore County may promulgate rules and have speed cameras. So one asks, why are speed cameras a good idea? One, it is clearly a link to public safety. I have provided in my letter an attachment that is from traffic management groups and traffic engineering groups. There is a magic number between 35 and 37.5 miles per hour. That is kind of the difference between a likelihood that you will either be killed as a pedestrian or severely injured as a pedestrian if the vehicle is moving faster than that. So keeping speeds down is clearly a public safety issue, and the primary goal is to reduce accidents. Two, driver's responsibilities. Everybody who gets a driver's license is a privilege, not a right. And essentially, most of us had to take the class or take the test and get our driver's license. What you're doing is agreeing to follow the rules of the road, and the government says, okay, here's a license that says you do that. And the rules really are don't drive too fast, follow signage, respect emergency vehicles, and don't hit stuff is the main goal of all those rules and regulations. The driver's benefit to a speed camera basically is if you are naughty, you will receive a little letter in the mail that says, here's the fine you have to pay. If a police officer stops you, you're going to not only get probably the fine, you're going to get points as well. So if you're being naughty one day and you're usually good, you'll get the slap on the hands versus potential points.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Your 2 minutes, if you could give us a summary sentence, please.
My last point is really that it's beneficial because we all know we're short on police, and we'd prefer them doing different duties than traffic. And we're requesting that you vote in favor of this enabling legislation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Jeffrey Myers, Pot Spring Community Association. You have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Jeff Myers. I'm immediate past president of the Pot Spring Community Association, and I'm a current board member. The association supported this bill last year, and I anticipate that they will vote to support it at our next board meeting next Tuesday because we only have one new board member this year. I urge you to support this House bill. Yesterday, I submitted a hard copy of our written support, and I'm not going to read that aloud, but I urge you to take a look at that because it talks about my experience when I was president of the association with significant speeding problems we had on Pot Spring Road, and what I learned from talking to the county traffic engineers and to the police at the Cockeysville Police Precinct. What I want to focus on today is actually a little bit what Eric Rockwell talked about, this study that the Insurance Institute did down in Montgomery County, which has some very compelling data in it. I'm not going to repeat what Mr. Rocco talked about, but I'm going to talk about a part that they found that I think will be interesting to you as politicians. The survey that the Insurance Institute did went out and surveyed all the citizens in Montgomery County who are drivers. And they found that 95% of the drivers in Montgomery County knew about this traffic traffic camera program. 62% of them favored it, even though they had received tickets from the cameras or knew someone who had received tickets. So while this is a program that irritates people, and I'm one of those people who has been irritated when I got one of these tickets, I have learned to drive a lot slower on Lions Mill Road because of these cameras. People support it because they realize this is what we need to get people to obey the speed limit laws. I don't know why, since COVID, people have stopped obeying the speed limit, but any of us who drive know that this has happened. We don't have the funds to hire enough police officers to enforce those rules. So we need these speed cameras. I thank you for your time and consideration. And in summary, I asked that we get this bill passed this year because I don't want to come back next year and testify on this bill when it's named after some little kid who's been killed by a speeding driver. Thank you.
And thank you, sir. Okay, I'm going to just check if Mildred Owens is here. I'll wait a second to see. I have a feeling she's not. All right, that her not being present, unfortunately. I'm going to, as kind of finishing up testimony, just turn to the folks who represent county government for their posture on this bill, if they would like to offer it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the delegation. I'm here on behalf of the county executive. I'm Jen Aosa from the Office of Government Affairs. We have been working with Delegate Guyton and her staff on language. I think like many of your offices, we hear on a regular basis complaints and concerns from residents about speeding, especially since COVID. And we do believe that the county can develop a thoughtful process, both with the police department and our traffic engineers in the Department of Public Works and Transportation, to work with communities that have these concerns on, what are the right steps we can take to try to prevent this kind of speeding. And if cameras are a tool in that toolbox, we would be appreciative of that. So the county executive is supporting this and looks forward to working with Delegate Guyton and Senator Brooks. Thank you.
I'm going to make the assumptions that's with the amendments presented. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
we just saw, I believe, a copy of the amendment this morning, and we are perfectly fine with those.
Good to know. Thank you very much. All right, I want to remind everybody this is a hearing, and so whereas we'll be able to express opinions at voting time, this is really a question and answer period. So if you're recognized, you can express some of your feelings about it, but really you should be looking for clarification. I'm going to take people in order. Delegate Cardin, you're up first.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. First of all, thank you to all the folks who came in to testify, and my community association has been hankering me for months and months, and very much in support of this legislation as well, just FYI. Last year, Delegate Guyton, you and I spoke about this, but this might be a question really for Ms. Aosa from the County Executive's Office as well. There already is the enabling ability to put speed cameras within a half a mile of schools. Is that correct? Okay. Ms. Aosa, you're muted. Okay. And that includes, so within a half mile of schools includes more than half, if not about, I think about 2/3 of the county. Now, I know that Delegate Guyton lives in North County where the schools are much further apart, but for the most part, it covers most of the county already. Is that, and we do not, Okay, that's question number one.
I don't know that. I would have to check
If
with
you can
our
check that
police.
out and let us know so we can just be informed. Then the next question is, there's not right now, do you know if there's enough money and enough resources, enough speed cameras to even manage all of the school zones that we presently have?
So the answer to that, I do know, is no. Right now, we have a very limited number of cameras deployed within school zones. And I think that may be part of the challenge. Our police routinely move those cameras among school zones based on community complaints, accidents, traffic studies, etc. So we are not currently covered by any stretch of the imagination, even if the current authorizing language might suggest otherwise.
So if we approve this, would we basically, maybe this is for you, Delegate Guyton, I don't know, but will we basically be using those limited resources in a larger breadth of areas, except and not just in school areas anymore? Is that, or is this a different, last year?
Yeah, thank you, Delegate Cardin. I think that would be up to the county to decide where they are going to be most effective and where they are most needed. I mean, that's really what this bill is all about. So no one knows the answer to that question. Right. I also think it's important to say that even if we don't have the funds now for the future, and I know a lot of my colleagues are worried about expansion, that might give them a breath of relief there. We do want to be prepared for the future where we might have those resources and or we might need them for public safety. So we don't want them to come back for this later either. Thank you. Thank you for your question.
One last question then. Thank you very much, Delegate. So the question is, if we decided to pass this, and we would give the authority to the county, we would basically be I'm just to be clear, because this is for the county is saying that they're in favor of this. We're going to have all of the community associations that are coming to me and us and all of us legislators and asking us to pass this, coming to you and asking you to move cameras from school zones into communities that are not within school zones. And so it's going to be up to the county to be the bad guy and figure out how we're going to denominate those resources. That's basically what's going to happen. I just want to make it clear that that's
Thank you, Delegate Cardin. I don't know that we know what's going to happen. All we know is that it will be up to the county to make those decisions because they are closer to the people, to the problems. And I can tell you, Chief McCullough is very excited about having more direct authority on these issues. And thank you for your question. I recognize you don't. You're not a
has the school system chimed in, or should we get them to? I mean, this is for the chair, I guess. But okay, thank you. Look, my feeling is, well, if the county executive and the county wants it, then maybe we should consider it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Okay, Delegate Naraki got kicked off and put back on. You're next. Go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, let me lower my hand here. This question, first question I have could either be for Delegate Guyton or for Ms. Aosa, whoever wants to take the first stab at it. Could you tell me how many speed cameras we currently have in operation in Baltimore County?
I don't have that number in front of me. I do believe it is less than 50.
You know, if Tony Bazemore is here, maybe he can quickly look up the answer to that.
I think I have the number. Chief McCullough gave me a rough
rhetorical question.
I believe it's 78, but I wanted to verify that. Chief McCullough did not have a chance to get it back to me yet, but I wanted to verify that. So I believe it is actually 78 in operation currently. Ms. Aosa, could you tell us about the recent rule change that the county council just passed within the past several months with respect to speed cameras, bringing it in line with COMAR, and what the policy was in Baltimore County before that rule change and what the policy is now in Baltimore County?
No, actually, I can't. I know that the administration has been working with the county council to look for funding to expand within the current authorizing language the number of cameras that we can deploy, because it has been a matter of resources, and there has in the past been council concern about how many cameras we deploy. So we've been working directly with the council to try to come to an agreement on a modest expansion within existing speed zones.
Delegate Guyton, are you able to address that recent rule change? I'm not sure if you're aware of that one.
Not at all. I'm not.
Okay, well, then I'll
Not from any of our council friends or county's office, so I'm not sure how significant that is.
It's very significant. So Councilman Koch recently was able to get a rule change passed in Baltimore County. Up until very recently, we were only able to put speed cameras within 200 feet of a school zone. He passed legislation that brought that in line with the COMAR standards to allow it to now be within a half a mile of a school zone.
Certainly. Thank you very much. And that I think that has been the assumption we've been going on in this conversation. And that is, that's basically the distance that Delegate Cardin was speaking on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug. But that was not the rule until very recently, within the past 2 months in Baltimore County. So it does have an impact. So there are 176 BCPS schools in Baltimore County. There are 141 private schools in Baltimore County. I'm waiting to get this back from my school board member, but according to my school board member, 75% of the land area in Baltimore County actually falls within.
Rocky, I have to ask you if you have a question. You're really
I do. I've got one more question.
Okay, thank you.
I promise I'm getting to a question here, sir. My final question is, so in Montgomery County, there are currently 152 speed cameras deployed in Montgomery County. In Baltimore County, we could deploy up to 318 with the current rules in place. Is that not enough? Is 318 not enough, Delegate Guyton? And wouldn't it be prudent possibly to maybe conduct a study to see with this new rule change what that could look like in the county, as opposed to just kind of changing policy, but let this policy kind of play out, this new policy in Baltimore County, to see what that could look like?
I don't know if 300 speed cameras is enough or way too much, honestly. I think the real issue here is who should be making those decisions. Is it the local administration or is it the state? Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Rocky. Delegate Schlega.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for this bill. Of course, I think we have a wide agreement that speeding is a problem. We're all hearing it. And I've been asking to get the speed reduced on Bel Air Road near me because it is a problem even there. And what they've done near me is put speed humps in, which doesn't cost motorists a ticket. But so regarding the ticket, my question is, I believe the speed camera ticket right now is $40. Who can increase that?
I have no idea. I'm going to kick that one to the county.
I was not expecting that. I don't know who can increase that, but I'm making a list of your questions so that we can try to find answers for them.
Okay.
I do know that speed cameras don't ticket individuals, but rather the owners of cars, because we don't take pictures of the drivers. So
sure,
that's why it's held to a lower level. I think it's
well, somebody's paying it. So if they, if this can be a hardship for people, $40 is a lot of money. And, then if you don't pay it, it gets fines, and then your registration gets held up, and, it can create a lot of problems. So the ability, if you're going to kick it over to the county, which generally I'm for local control, but alcohol laws and other things are at the state level for a reason. So I'd like to know who can increase it. Would there be a cap on it? And how do they get removed? So if your bill passes and, they pop up somewhere and people don't want them there, how can citizen groups get them removed?
Well, that I can answer, because all of those regs are going to be promulgated by the county. So they do include the responsibility for public comment and public interaction. So yeah, thank you.
So it would be the county executive who would have the authority to place them and remove them ultimately?
The county hasn't developed the regs there. Let me just back up a little bit because I don't want this to sound like we're cutting out the county council, but that's not what's happening here. The provisions that we've put in this particular legislation already over the past year and a half since I've been working on it are much more prescriptive than any other county who's made this change, right? They just add their name to a list of names. We're already prescribing a lot of things that were concerns of you all, the membership of this delegation, and that I really tried to be responsive to. And because of that, we didn't want to put every single little thing into this bill. So the county has agreed to take on all of those little bits and pieces and determine how they're going to be evaluated. And I feel, and that doesn't cut out anyone, and that doesn't mean they're not involved, but county council vote, for my understanding, and I can ask Amanda as well, county council vote for every placement is not currently the way they do business. So this just puts it in line with the way that these other camera situations are handled. The county will make that decision.
Okay.
And I'm comfortable with that. I think they should have that local control.
So I know you submitted a support letter from Councilman Patoka, sorry. I understand there are a number of councilmen that are opposed to this. Have you gotten any feedback from them?
No, actually, we have the majority we know are in favor. And we haven't reached out to every. Well, I see. I don't think delegate. I see Delegate Graham shaking his head, but we have 4 out of 7. So I'm not sure what to say about that.
Okay. And finally,
thank you.
Asked and answered. We can certainly investigate support. Excuse me. We can certainly investigate support among council members and verify that in the week, because we're not voting on the bill.
We're still waiting for one letter, so maybe that won't come. But including Wade Koch, who's a Republican. Thank you.
Okay. And finally, for the record, Mr. Chair, thank you for allowing us to put some things on the record. If there are 318 schools in Baltimore County, you could put one at each side, because, you know, the schools near me just have a camera for traffic going one direction, not both. So you could potentially end up with, 636 additional speed cameras in Baltimore County. Thank you.
Very, very good, Matt Delegate Saliga, and I certainly appreciate that.
I feel like that's a very unlikely scenario. Thank you.
Thank you to the sponsor for pointing that out. Delegate Long.
Thank you. My new phone's not working properly the way I thought it would. But my question is, and I got disconnected. I heard someone say that there was an outside vendor that would actually pay for the installation of these cameras and take care of everything, and then they would whatever net proceeds was left, they would pay to the county. And I just find that very concerning that we're going to even think about letting an outside vendor take care of, speeding tickets. I just had several incidences where I received Easy Pass violations that weren't mine. And it took me forever to get through to these people and get it straightened out. But that's another story. But anyway, the outside vendor taking care of this is just very disturbing on my part. Am I correct in what I heard?
Real quick,
I'm not
asking
sure
the county, does an outside vendor take care of speed cameras now as well?
I believe so.
But that's current procedure, and that's not really on the bill then. We're talking about adding them, but that's already a procedure that's in place, and the bill doesn't address that. I'll let the sponsor speak to that if she'd like.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. That's exactly what I was going to say. The bill does not impact that in any way.
Yeah, I'm not arguing in favor of the bill, but I think we should stay up in the bill if we can.
Well, no, I heard testimony that they said that there would be an outside vendor supply the cameras at no cost to the county. Am I correct?
That is already current practice, is what we're saying.
Right. So what you're saying is that right now that there's an outside vendor supplying the cameras?
Yeah. Delegate Long, we've established that's true. Is there a question?
Question. I just, like I said, I didn't know. Okay. I know you keep saying that the county's got limited resources. why is it? That's what I was trying to clarify.
So
Thank you.
one more time, that's a different subject and you're welcome to address that in a bill of your own. But this bill does not address financing that. Those procedures are already in place. This bill talks about putting more cameras under similar circumstances. Delegate Metzger. There it is.
There you go. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Michelle, for the delegate for the testimony and the. What I'm concerned and what I'm hearing is that we're like punting this to the county, and that brings thought to my mind. But the other part is, and the question here is, have you thought about doing this as a study to really see where the residents of all parts of the county, not just North Part and Timonium and that sort of thing. I have to tell you that speeding is a real problem. I've lost 2 family members in speeding incidents, so I know this is very tragic. I'm okay with putting speed cameras on the highways, but I'm not so sure I want them in the neighborhood. So that's my thought, and if you would address that. I don't feel like I live by the senior center, and I'm not sure I want to have a camera outside my senior center. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Metzger. I just want to make it very, very clear, right? And I appreciate the chair's remarks. I will respectfully would like to correct one thing that was just said. This bill does not say that we are going to increase the number of speed cameras. It does not. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. I see Jen Iosa has her hand up, and usually that's for clarification. Would you like to offer some clarification, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I think the thing that I would like to clarify for folks on this call is that currently speed cameras cannot and are not placed anywhere without a traffic study that is conducted by our transportation engineers and discussion and evaluation by the police department. So the county feels like when we authorize the movement or the installation of a new camera, currently it is done only in areas where there has been a demonstration of speeding, where we actually have data of car speeds, the number of cars over a given period of time, and the police department can document either specific complaints, accidents, near accidents, or other extenuating circumstances that would make the installation of a camera a good use of limited resources. So I think it's safe to say that the county is looking at this to give us another tool. If there is a location within a residential community that is experiencing high levels of speeding, maybe some accidents or other traffic concerns, and community members and community leaders come forward and seek that kind of study, this would enable us to look into that and consider whether or not deployment of a camera might be appropriate.
Thank you. Delegate Mangione.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for this bill. And I guess this could go to either the Delegate Guyton or Jen, who just spoke. I guess to your point you just made about the police discuss this and whether or not to go forward, is there any community input rather than just the individual or I guess community association, for example, that I guess currently if there's going to be an additional speed camera added, or is it just the discussion amongst police and a study?
Thank you so much, Delegate Mangione. Yes, public comment is written into the bill.
Okay, that's good.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, I like hearing
Yes.
that because there's been and you've experienced a number of times, like Sparks Belfast Road, for example, where
Delegate Mangione, we're pushing up against time here. Do you have another question?
I do, but I mean, I was just simply making a comment about.
I know, but this is a hearing, and the hearings are for questions. We can have testimony at the voting when they come.
Okay, well, the comments kind of all tie together, but I guess my other question would be, where do the funds go if, because there could clearly be collected millions of dollars if this goes forward and there's a bunch more cameras. Where do these funds go? Where do they plan to go? Where do they go now, I guess?
So the current state law restricts the use of camera fund or speed camera revenues to basically operations of the program and public safety. So this is not something that the county can use to do other projects or build buildings or pay employees. It is for public safety needs.
Yeah, so these will.
And again, I'll stress that the bill is not about that because that's already law. And if somebody is interested in changing that, I will also comment that earlier we discussed the amount of the fine. Council informs me that that's $40 set by the General Assembly. So these are things that are in our purview, but are not part of what this bill is seeking to expand under current law that we already use for cameras at schools.
Okay, well, it's just for my own knowledge. That's
right. But this is a good offline conversation. Here we're talking about the bill itself and whether we want to have more cameras.
I understand that, but with more cameras equals.
I'm sorry, this is, the
more
bill does not necessarily expand camera, that just allows.
I'm sorry, I was really just trying to say it's about
where
whether,
they would like.
about placing them at different places.
So, but under this bill, Delegate, can you remove cameras?
Certainly, that's up to the county. This is all about county. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right, and that would again be back to the public input, whether or not. So I could say that I don't want this camera in my neighborhood, and we could remove it under this bill.
They move and remove cameras all the time already under current practice.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
That's a good question. Thank you, Delegate Mangione. I appreciate that one because that's highly relevant in this situation.
Thank you.
Delegate Grammer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One direct question. So we know to actually address speed problems, you have to address the structure of the road. We know that. We hear the same story. The two gentlemen, Mr. Taylor, Mr. Myers, who I think are sincere about their speed concerns, told us about how they themselves speeded. And what tends to happen is if you have a person traveling through a transit area, they need to be informed via a matter of the structure of the road, speed bumps, narrowing the road, islands, traffic circles, traffic lights. That's actually how you reduce the speed limits. So, what tends to happen in my district is these cameras get put in the poor areas.
Delegate Grammer, are you coming to a question?
Yeah, the Middle River area, and we never actually get the infrastructure we need. So my question is, have you attempted to, use these mechanisms to address the speeding concerns as opposed to leaning on speed cameras?
I think the county's done an amazing job, and I've seen it in my district firsthand on using those other types of speed mediating devices and structures. Absolutely, as they have testified, and as many people have testified, this is one other tool in that toolbox that we actually do know is incredibly effective. And there's a lot of data on that for those situations where those others don't work. So, but thank you for the question. I think that's a really, really good question. Yes, they do a lot of that other infrastructure work. And I think generally that's the first line of defense.
Thank you, Delegate Grammer. Good question. Last question, Delegate Stein, Speaker Pro Tem Stein, if you don't mind. Congratulations, by the way, on behalf of the entire delegation. I hope we can say that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Delegates, thank you very much for bringing this bill. Just a couple quick questions. Your bill, gives authorization to Baltimore County with the same limitations as are under state law. That is, that a ticket can only be issued or fine can only be issued if someone's going 12 miles an hour more than the speed limit. And it's only for roads that have posted speed limits between 20 and 35 miles per hour, no other roads. Is that right? I mean, you're so,
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem.
okay. And the second question is, you're just seeking the same authority for Baltimore County that the governments of Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Anne Arundel County already have. Is that right?
That's correct. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good questions. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. All right, the Vice Chair's got his hand up, so we're going to give him the floor real quick.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate Guyton, under your bill, in order for the process to even start, who would have to initiate that process?
Citizens would.
And the citizens lives in the communities that.
Correct. The people who are most affected by whatever the public safety issue is, in this case, possibly speeding. Yes.
Okay. Now, currently, if a resident wanted to speak for or against a camera being introduced into their community, where would they have to go to voice their concern?
Thank you so much for that question. Currently, if we were going to do this ourselves rather than give authority to the county, that citizen would have to travel to Annapolis.
Mm-hmm. And what committee would they have to go to do that?
They would go to the ENT committee with many of us on this call. Yeah.
And how many people from Baltimore County sits on ENT? Do you know that question?
4, 5. Yeah. I'm not sure. Okay. 4, I think.
So that would mean that there would be representatives who know nothing about the community that is before them making a decision on if a camera would be placed in that community or not. Is that so?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. In fact, that's the reason that I brought the bill, because it does not only go to ENT committee, it goes to my subcommittee, on which I believe, the only person from Baltimore County. So we have folks from Montgomery County, folks from Baltimore City, folks from a lot of other districts and parts of the state making those decisions for our people in Baltimore County. And that does not make sense to me. And that's why I brought this bill, and I brought it not on behalf of myself. I brought it on behalf of the 42 community associations that have reached out, not in my district, although many of them are, in all of your districts. And there is one in every one of your districts that have asked for this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, can I get just maybe 2 more questions?
Yeah, I think, okay, yes.
Sorry about that.
So the handwriting's on the wall here. Okay.
The purpose of speed cameras is to do what? Delegate Guyton.
My understanding, although I'm not an expert, is to slow people down and increase public safety and decrease deaths, injuries, and accidents.
So to bundle that all up, you would just say deter speeding, right?
Correct.
Okay, so if someone speeds, then there is a consequence. Is that correct? Oh, you're muted.
Yes, there is, and I believe that.
Oh.
Okay, yes, there is, and I believe that's appropriate.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, we want some. I want to say that my intent was to treat this as a normal meeting without a pro forma session instead of a regular session being down us, and we're at 10 minutes to 11. We have 2 other bills, and I don't believe we're going to get to both of them, but I want to make sure we exhaust this. So, Delegate Shalega, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate a second bite at the apple, but at what Delegate Jackson and Delegate Guyton just said, I was confused. So you were saying on the record that currently Baltimore County residents have to go to Annapolis to approve a speed camera in their community? I thought Baltimore County determined where within a school district, which we determined could be 636 currently approved camera locations. So they don't come to Annapolis for that. They go to Baltimore County makes that decision. Is that correct?
They would have to come to Annapolis to testify for any possible speed monitoring device outside of an already established school zone, which is
Okay.
more than half the county.
Okay, so you weren't saying that currently the enabling ability of Baltimore County to place 636 speed cameras in Baltimore County, they don't have to come to Annapolis for that. If you want to place speed cameras outside of these school locations within a half a mile of a school, then they'd have to come to Annapolis. That's, I think, clarifying, just because it sounded like that.
I'd love to answer your question, Delegate. Yes, absolutely, that's the case. If Baltimore County wants to increase public safety after a safety report and study at the suggestion of the police department, outside of a very specified school zone area, currently they have to come to Annapolis. Under this legislation, they'll be able to just go down to Towson. So yeah, I think it'll be much more convenient for people in those situations.
Yes, with outside of the current. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Naraki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for one more bite at the apple. I'll point a clarification. I think the Vice Chair made an excellent point. I do have a question, though, to Delegate Guyton. Delegate Guyton, last year, because I've only got 1 year in the legislature, could you tell me how many bills, speed camera bills that the counties brought that our committee voted down, where we were looking to expand it outside of a school zone when a county is asking for it?
You know what? Honestly, I cannot. I can remember at least one where there was a whole lot of controversy that was a local bill, and I believe that was St. Mary's County, but I don't want to actually speak incorrectly on that. So I don't have the answer to that question right now.
I think that was Charles County. I think Delegate Davis maybe had some questions with that, but my recollection, I'll verify, it was 0. We didn't vote any down out of our committee when the counties asked for them.
Again, I'm not sure. I know there was some controversy over some, but I also don't believe we had many bills, maybe only 2 or 3 last year. I'm sure that Mr. Speaker Pro Tem maybe has a better grasp of the numbers. You know, I will say, though, that those had to wait until legislative session to be approved, which in some cases might have cost lives.
Okay, seeing no further questions, that concludes the hearing on House Bill 58. We have a few minutes left. There have been some people who are willing to testify who've been waiting online for over an hour and a half. And so we're going to try to, with some alacrity, move through House Bill 108, which is Baltimore County Board of Education compensation changes for board members. And with that, I will move to the sponsor, Delegate Pasteur.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm going to say this very quickly. I appreciate that the salary was raised from $100 a year to $7,500 a year. But having sat on the board, I have been very clear about the magnitude of the work and the time spent for each one of our school board members, because everyone on this delegation has someone who was elected or appointed to the board. They spend an inordinate amount of time, not even counting the time that any of us see them when they are at school board meetings, the closed sessions, the committee meetings, the visits to schools, graduations. I can go on and on and on. The preparation for meetings, and not to mention the stress. These are different times. These are not the times for $100 piece for being on the school board. We want to keep having people who care about our children, who want to run, who want to give the time. And so we have increased, I have increased that salary. I have spoken to the county executive. I've spoken to Amanda Carr to go through it. The chair of the delegation, the vice chair of the delegation, I'm trying to say this quickly, the chair of the education committee. We are in agreement, and I can't imagine anyone not being in agreement, because the people who sit there are each person's person. We are that was crazy. But we have that connection with our school board reps. And I'm sure all of you know how much time, how much work, how many issues are out there. They need more. And we are so far behind Howard County, Prince George's County, Montgomery County. And this bill is asking that we step up, that we give them non-student members $16,500 for the chair, $17,500, because they have to spend even more time doing the work of the board, and increasing the student member to $10,000. Again, I think I've hit all of the people who needed to have some say just to come up with those numbers. And now I'm bringing it to you, the real people who at the end of the day have the say, to make our people feel like they're worthwhile, and that the work they do as school board members is worthwhile, is important. And I'm done.
Thank you very much, Delegate, and appreciate your impassioned plea. We have 2 people to testify. We are going to give you 2 minutes, but we run long, so don't feel bad if you don't fill the full 2 minutes. First, we have Dr. Brenda Savoy, who is a school board member. Please, you have the floor.
Good morning to the delegation. I'll be as quick as possible. My name is Dr. Brenda Savoy, and I currently serve as an elected member of the Baltimore County Board of Education, representing District 4. And I'm also the chair of the Equity Committee. Before I begin, I would like to thank Chair Delegate Eric Ebersol, Vice Chair Delegate Carl Jackson, and Delegate Cheryl Pasteur for their service and support. As members of the Baltimore County Board of Education, we have been entrusted with the task of ensuring that every student meets with success. We do this by making school visits, meeting with principals and teachers and parents. We attend town halls, back to school events, PTA meetings, award ceremonies, groundbreaking ceremonies, graduation, HOA improvement events, oral arguments, retreats, board meetings. We do this, and we still have the responsibility of reviewing budget and capital documents to make sure that the blueprint for Maryland's future is being implemented throughout Maryland's school system. And lastly, as a member of the board, I have personally witnessed the major sacrifices of my fellow board members. 8 of our 12 board members work full-time jobs and have to use personal or vacation leave to attend required functions. Please take our needs to be better compensated for the work that we do seriously. Now, I'm asking you to please vote favorably to move House Bill 108 forward. I had to talk so fast. I'm sorry about that.
I'm sorry that you feel rushed. It's unfortunate, but I appreciate your efforts. I really do.
Thank you so much for listening today. I appreciate each one of you.
Certainly. Thank you for your testimony. We also have Chair Tara Booker Dwyer to testify as well. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Ebersol, Vice Chair Jackson, and members of the delegation. I am Tiara Booker Dwyer, Chair of the Baltimore County Board of Education, and I am here to express support for HB 108. Members of the Baltimore County Board of Education are responsible for the governance of the 3rd largest school system in Maryland and the 22nd largest school system in the nation. Our duties require more than just showing up to a monthly board meeting. Board members spend a significant amount of time going on school visits to see what is happening in our schools and to hear directly from school leaders, teachers, students, and staff. We attend community meetings to hear firsthand from community members about what is working well and what can be improved in our school system. We engage in professional learning to stay current on governance practices and research that can inform our work. We review documents, presentations, and other information to prepare for board meetings. We attend public hearings to inform decisions regarding school boundaries, budgets, and closures. We render decisions on oral arguments, and we engage in many other duties to inform governance that improves educational outcomes for our students. Being a board member, especially serving as a chair, is equivalent to having a part-time job. The current compensation structure may limit the representation of socioeconomically diverse board members, as it can be a financial strain for those from low-income households to hold a board seat. HB 108 right-sizes the compensation for board services. It supports increasing board diversity, It brings compensation of board members to levels that are comparable to those of similar sized school systems. And most importantly, it recognizes the amount of time that board members devote to the governance of one of the largest school systems in Maryland. Thank you, Delegate Pastor, for bringing this very timely and needed bill forward. And thank you, Chair Ebersol, Vice Chair Jackson, and the delegation for your service. I am requesting that the delegation move HB 108 forward favorably. Thank you.
Chair Dwyer, Booker Dwyer, thank you very much for your testimony. I did see a hand, but it went down. We've got one, Delegate Guyton.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Delegate Pastor, for bringing this bill. As someone who served on a Board of Ed, I absolutely agree that there should be some sort of compensation, and particularly at a time, and this is a question, particularly at a time when it is so very difficult to be a Board of Education member because of political influences. I thank you for this. I do have one question, and I apologize. I haven't had an opportunity to really dive into the bill. But I know that there's a $10,000 salary or scholarship. And I was just trying to clarify, is this in the form of a scholarship or is this in the form of for the student member?
It's a scholarship, period. Yes, for the student member. And we went to that only because they were already at 7,500.
Yes, thank you
and
so much.
I do want to point out that Senator Brooks is cross-filing this.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I think that's a lovely way to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Guyton. Delegate Bandari, hand up, hand down. I just saw it disappear.
Okay. Thank you so much. It's a wonderful bill. Just wanted to comment on that.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate that. Are there any other questions for the sponsors or for those who testified? I'll quickly turn to county government for commentary.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Delegate Pastor has worked with the county executive and his team, and the county executive supports this.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your succinctness, and also for, I'm sure the sponsor appreciates your support. If there are no other questions, that will conclude the hearing on House Bill 108. Since it was added at the last minute, and since it's unreasonable for me to prevail upon people who are actually working, like our counsel and our administrator, and also on you, because there's probably other activities you'd be interested in today, we're going to delay the hearing on House Bill 417 until next week. With that, I have a few quick pieces to clear up. If you have alcohol bills, it would be very good if you got them dropped, read across the desk before next week's meeting so that we could hear them. That would allow us to hear them on the 26th. That would allow us to vote on them on the 2nd, and then they would be in time for the deadline that ECM puts on us of the 9th. They would be in before that week. So if you're holding an alcohol bill, try to get it dropped quickly so that it can be read across the desk and we could actually take it up for a hearing at next week's meeting. Vice Chair Jackson is asked to make a quick appeal also, and then with that, after he's done, we'll conclude the meeting.
Yes, good morning, members. Just wanted to let everyone know that Christian, who was the intern with the chair this year, is interning with me this year, and he has been tasked with reaching out to each and every one of you that have not turned in your headshot and your answers to the bio form, so we can get you up on social media. So he will be reaching out to you. That'll be his main task. And yes, if there are any ideas for the ad hoc committee to tackle this legislative session or this year, please just reach out to my office and let us know as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Is there any other business for the good of the order? Seeing none, I will call this meeting in adjournment. Somebody nods their head. That's a motion, and we're done. Thank you very much, and enjoy the balance of your day.